What if I told you that in this second week of testing in Bahrain, Ferrari was not the fastest car, but was the most dangerous? Because while everyone was looking at the timetables, the SF26 was showing something much more disturbing, behavior that changes within the curve itself. It's not smoke. It's not marketing. It is a concept that has made several engineers in the paddock begin to ask themselves the same question. How is it possible for the Ferrari to pull like this without destroying the rear tire? Lewis Hamilton hasn't just adapted. In Bahrain, we have seen the first signs that the seven-time champion has found a weapon that can return him to center stage. And the most talked about detail is not in the front wing, but in a small rear area that could be the great technical trick of 2025. In this second week of testing in Bahrain, Ferrari did not improvise, it executed. After a few first days focused on basic correlation and data validation, the focus changed radically. Now the goal was to understand how far they could push the true SF26 concept without showing all their cards. And that is where the trick that is bothering the rest of the grid begins to reveal itself. The first thing that caught our attention was not an isolated fast lap, but the way in which the car behaved in long corner sequences, especially in the second sector of the Sakhir track, where stability in medium support and traction at exit make real differences. While other cars showed small steering corrections or microslips when applying power, the Ferrari seemed to progressively settle into the asphalt, as if it found additional grip just when it needed it most. The key is how Ferrari gets to this second week. We are not talking about a simple aggressive aerodynamic package, but rather an integrated philosophy. The SF26 does not work with a constant rigid platform, works with a dynamic platform. At curve entry, the car maintains an extremely precise front axle thanks to a suspension geometry that limits pitching under braking. This allows Lewis Hamilton to attack the turning point more decisively, delaying the moment of releasing the brake without compromising stability. But the really shocking thing happens after the apex. The moment the driver begins to apply the accelerator, the car does not react with the typical hint of oversteer that we see when the rear axle is not yet fully seated. Instead, the SF26 appears to progressively gain stability. That feeling is not coincidental. During this second week, Ferrari has been working intensively on the synchronization between hybrid delivery and rear downforce. It's not that the car has more power, it's that the delivery of that power is calibrated millimetrically to coincide with the exact moment in which the rear flow stabilizes. Here comes the detail that has generated the most rumors in the paddock, the work in the exhaust area and the residual flow. Without entering into a legal speculation, what is clear is that Ferrari has optimized the way in which hot air interacts with the upper part of the diffuser and the rear plane during acceleration phases. This causes a momentary improvement in stability just when the driver begins to demand all-wheel drive. It is not a permanent effect, it is transitional. And therein lies the genius. During this second week in Bahrain, the team did not look for headlines. He looked for repetition. Repetition in medium runs, repetition in long runs, repetition with variable fuel loads. The objective was to verify that this dynamic behavior was not circumstantial, but consistent. And the internal data, as perceived by the team's body language and the confidence shown in the box, seems to have been extremely positive. Lewis Hamilton, for his part, began to be much more aggressive at corner entry compared to the first days. He was seen using a more marked rotation, taking advantage of the fact that the car does not penalize weight transfer as much in the initial phase. That confidence only appears when the driver feels that the rear is not going to betray him at the start. And in Bahrain, in this second week, Hamilton began to drive like someone who already understands where the car's real limit is. What impacts rivals is not a specific number. It's the feeling that Ferrari has found a way to reduce one of the biggest problems of the current era, the critical transition between lateral support and longitudinal traction. That moment in which time is normally lost due to skating or correction. The SF26 goes through it with a technical cleanliness that suggests deep work on aerodynamic and energy integration. And all this occurs on a circuit where thermal degradation and asphalt abrasion often expose any structural weaknesses. However, in this second week, the Ferrari did not show abrupt drops in performance when temperatures exceeded 40 degrees on the track. This indicates that the concept not only works in ideal conditions, but also in demanding scenarios. Ferrari has not shown everything, but enough for the paddock to understand that this car is not a simple evolution. It's a message. The second act begins when we stop looking at the obvious and start to understand what is really happening under the body. Because what Ferrari showed in this second week in Bahrain is not simply a good overall balance. It is an architecture designed to master the most delicate moment of any turn, the transition between maximum lateral load and total application of power. This is where the element that is already discussed quietly in the paddock comes in. The SF26 exhaust zone is not just there to fulfill a thermal function. Ferrari has redesigned the way the residual flow interacts with the top of the diffuser and the lower plane of the rear wing. We are not talking about a visible and aggressive spoiler. We are talking about air micromanagement that is only activated in specific acceleration conditions. It is a transitory effect, not constant, and that makes it much more difficult to detect and replicate. During this second week in Bahrain, when the car left turn 10 or faced traction at turn 1, something very specific could be observed. While other cars suffered slight slips that forced the driver to modulate the accelerator, the Ferrari applied power with an almost electric, clean, linear progressiveness. That's no coincidence. Ferrari has synchronized the hybrid delivery with the exact moment when the rear flow reaches full aerodynamic stability. Here's the technical key to Act 2. The SF26 doesn't simply generate more charge, generates the right charge at the right time. When Hamilton starts to open the throttle, the hybrid system does not deliver peak torque abruptly. The management is calibrated to scale just when the rear platform reaches its optimal support point. This micro-coordination reduces the initial slip, protects the tire, and allows the moment of full acceleration to be advanced a few meters before the rest. On a circuit like Bahrain, where traction zones determine much of the lap time, that difference is pure gold. It is not spectacular visually, but in telemetry it means accumulated tenths on each corner exit. And the most shocking thing is that the car maintains this behavior even when the tank is not empty. During the long runs of this second week, Ferrari tested different fuel loads, and the pattern remained stable. Now, why does this impact rivals so much? Because it breaks a structural limitation that has affected the current generation of cars, the difficulty of combining rear stability with front agility without compromising one of the two extremes. The SF26 seems to have found a way to maintain an extremely reactive nose without sacrificing exit traction. This duality is what forces other teams to rethink their suspension maps and energy management. And in the middle of all this is Lewis Hamilton. In this second week, we saw him start to exploit the car as if he already understood where the real window of performance is. His tackles were more aggressive, his rotation more determined, but what was most telling was his confidence in opening the gas early. That confidence does not appear if the rider feels that the rear could break at any moment. It appears when you know that the car is going to support you. The message that Ferrari sends from Bahrain is clear. They do not need to dominate the timetable to demonstrate that they have made a conceptual leap. What they have shown is a deep integration between aerodynamics, suspension, and power unit. A system that does not depend on a single brilliant element, but on the precise synchronization of all of them. And this is just the beginning of the real technical conflict of 2025. Because if this transitional effect works the same in race conditions as in testing, the rest will have to decide if they try to copy the concept or if they develop a completely different response. The third act is not about what Ferrari did in this second week in Bahrain. It's about what that means for the rest of the championship. Because when a team introduces a concept that optimizes the most delicate phase of the lap, the transition between apex and full acceleration is not looking to win a test. He is preparing a technical war. And the SF26 has made it clear that it is not a circumstantial car, it is a car with intention. What we saw in Sakhir during these days was not simply a good balance. It was a demonstration that Ferrari has understood something that many are still trying to figure out. In today's era, the key is not only in generating maximum load, but in how that load is dynamically distributed during the turn. If the SF26 can maintain that progressive corner exit stability when everyone else is still fighting microslips, that translates into a brutal cumulative advantage over the course of a race. Let's think about what this means against Red Bull. The RB21 has shown straight-line speed and performance peaks, but has been more nervous in technical areas. If Ferrari manages to apply power earlier in each exit, even just 2 or 3 meters, that advantage becomes natural defense on the straight. You don't need more top speed if you reach it sooner. And on a schedule that includes high traction circuits, that difference can tilt entire weekends. Against McLaren, the threat is different. The British team has built very aerodynamically efficient cars, very balanced on long runs. But if Ferrari has found a way to better protect the rear tire thanks to that synchronized torque delivery, where it could work in the SF20SX's favor over long stints. We're not just talking about a fast lap, we're talking about consistency in extreme heat conditions, just what Bahrain put to the test in this second week. The SF26 does not impact due to an isolated figure in the timetable. It impacts the way it generates performance, because of how its character subtly changes within the same curve, because of how it synchronizes hybrid delivery with the exact moment the rear platform reaches stability, because of how it allows power to be applied earlier without punishing the tire. That's no coincidence. It is deep integration. It is designed with intention. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.